The darkness seemed to swallow the farthest corner of the galaxy. The only light came from distant stars, casting faint glimmers on the massive warships silently awaiting in the territory of the Zartar Empire. This planet, once a battlefield in galactic wars, had brought many civilizations to the brink of destruction. The humans, knowing they couldn't match this enormous enemy's physical strength, realized the most effective way to win this war was to bring them down from within. Infiltration, mental warfare, and carefully crafted strategies were the key to winning this battle without ever needing to engage in direct combat. As Ryker moved through the darkness, his eyes scanned the surroundings with sharp focus. His team was with him: Merrick, Elian, and Zeke. Each of them was the best in their field, representing different facets of warfare. Under Ryker's command, they were about to infiltrate deep behind enemy lines and start a war the Zartars wouldn't even realize was happening. Their target was the Arctar Station, a colossal structure that directed the routes and operations of the Zartar Empire's warships. If they could sabotage this station, the Zartar fleet would descend into chaos, with ships misdirected and even attacking one another. But getting there was perilous. Every corridor was lined with lethal security systems and heavily armed guards. As Ryker pulled back into the shadow of their ship, he turned to his team. "This isn't just an infiltration," he whispered. "We're going to hit them with their own weapons. We'll drive them into chaos." Merrick, the cyber warfare expert, was already plugged into his terminal, bypassing the security protocols. "I'll have the security systems down in 5 minutes," he said quietly. Zeke, moving like a shadow, was scouting the area. As a sniper and assassin, he was always alert, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Without being seen, Zeke was ready to neutralize any threats. Elian, the master of identity forgery and disguise, had prepared all the necessary documents to mask the team's presence. They would enter the Zartar military systems with fake credentials, pushing the operation even further. As they approached the Arctar Station, the weightlessness of space surrounded them in silence. Ryker's heartbeat was steady, his mind clear. Once inside, they were greeted by vast metal corridors, cold and dim, stretching out before them. The station was an engineering marvel but also a deadly trap. Zeke stopped suddenly. "A guard's coming," he said calmly. Ryker's eyes flicked towards him. "Don't give him a chance," he ordered. Zeke drew his laser pistol and pressed himself against the wall. The guard's footsteps echoed closer. Zeke's breathing was controlled, calm. As the guard rounded the corner, he barely had time to react. Zeke moved instantly, grabbing the guard's throat and bringing him down silently. The guard was incapacitated before he could utter a sound. Ryker and the others barely glanced at the swift kill as they continued their mission. Zeke dragged the body into a corner, erasing their tracks. The team made their way deeper into the heart of Arctar, heading for the central control room. Here, the battle was one of minds and fingertips. Merrick, hooked into his terminal, had taken full control of the station. "I've hacked the system," he whispered. "I'm changing the warships' routes now. They'll start colliding with each other." Ryker turned to Elian. "Now send out the fake orders. Let the commanders turn on each other." Elian nodded silently and began transmitting fake orders, sowing confusion among the Zartar commanders. Each would begin to suspect the other of sabotage, deepening the chaos within their ranks. In the control room, time seemed to stand still. Merrick was sweating, his hands flying across the console. "You're going to need to be patient," he muttered, out of breath. "The security systems are still up." Meanwhile, Ryker stayed alert. The station's heavy security protocols needed to be fully disabled. One mistake could cost the team their lives. A moment later, the flashing red warnings on the terminal screens disappeared. "All right," Merrick said. "The ships will start attacking each other now." Ryker nodded in approval. "We're done here," he said coolly. "Let's get out." But just as he spoke, the station's alarm blared. Merrick's eyes widened. "Someone must have noticed something," he said. "They've found us." The echo of the alarms reverberated down the corridors, setting Zeke on high alert. "We need to move now," he warned. The guards were on their trail, armed and dangerous. Ryker quickly took command. "Defensive formation. Silent escape isn't an option anymore. We'll fight our way out." Zeke fired his laser pistol at the advancing guards, a flurry of beams lighting up the corridor. The guards' armor crackled as they were hit, one by one falling to the ground. Merrick and Elian stood behind, providing cover. Ryker drew his own laser weapon and fired several shots at the guards. The Zartar soldiers were stunned. How had the humans managed to infiltrate this deep? The smell of blood and metal mingled in the air as the fight raged on. "We've reached our target. Let's make an exit," Ryker ordered, quickly guiding his team. The station, now left in chaos, would soon be the downfall of the Zartar Empire. Reaching the exit, they sprinted toward their ship. The alarm still screamed, and Ryker glanced back one last time as they boarded. As they climbed aboard, they knew they had planted the seeds of chaos behind them. Ryker and his team would continue sowing the seeds of greater wars in the dark corners of the galaxy. Although Ryker and his team had managed to escape from the Arctar Station, their mission was far from over. They had plunged one of the Zartar Empire's most critical military bases into chaos, but that was only the beginning. They needed to reach the very heart of the Empire, its most strategic centers. The enemy, viewing the collisions of their ships and the conflicting orders as bad luck or internal sabotage, had no idea that the real attack had yet to begin. Zeke took control of the ship and directed them at full speed toward their next target. The ship, designed to avoid radar detection, glided silently through the deep darkness of space. Ryker's mind, however, was focused on the next steps. "Our next target is the Zartar Empire's main headquarters," Ryker said, turning to his team. "This base, located in the Dark System, manages the enemy's most important operations. If we can take it down, we'll break the back of the Zartar army." Elian nodded with some hesitation. "This base has much stronger defenses than Arctar. Security systems, hundreds of guards, maybe even robotic defenses. It won't be easy." Ryker remained calm as he looked at her. "We didn't expect it to be easy. That's exactly why we're here. We'll hit them at their weakest points. And we'll do it like a ghost." Merrick, quickly scanning the data on his terminal, examined the security protocols. "I found a passage deep within enemy lines. At the rear of the station, there's a rarely used maintenance tunnel. It leads us directly to the main communications center." Ryker paused for a moment, gathering his thoughts. "Once we infiltrate the communications center, we can cripple their entire command structure and turn them against each other. A galaxy-wide communications blackout would paralyze their commanders completely." Finally, when they neared the enemy base, their radar systems remained undetected. The ship switched to stealth mode before entering the enemy's line of sight. Ryker and his team quickly landed and set foot on enemy soil. This time, they would have to infiltrate much deeper. There was no room for error. As they reached the maintenance tunnel, they found themselves in a dark and damp environment. Cold metal pipes stretched along the walls, and a low-frequency hum echoed throughout the corridor, the sound of massive machines working deep within the station. At the end of the tunnel, they stood just outside a large storage room. Beyond this lay a labyrinth of defensive systems that would stand between them and their goal. Zeke silently moved to the front. "I'll go first," he whispered. "If there are any traps or security systems, I'll handle them." Ryker trusted Zeke's abilities. Moving like a shadow, Zeke advanced, carefully scanning the walls as he readied his laser pistol. After several meters, he stopped, signaling the team to approach. "There's a patrol ahead," he said quietly. The patrol consisted of 4 heavily armored Zartar soldiers and 2 robotic guards. They didn't appear to be on a normal patrol. Rather, they seemed to have locked down the area. One mistake, and it would mean certain death for the team. After a brief moment of thought, Ryker turned to Zeke. "We need to take them out quickly. Let's be silent but fast. Zeke, take the guards. Elian, stay back and keep an eye on things. Merrick, deal with the robots." Moving like a cat, Zeke crept up on the first Zartar soldier. Without drawing his laser pistol, he silently approached from behind and struck his knife into the soldier's throat. The man collapsed without making a sound. Before the others could react, Zeke had already taken out the second soldier with the same precision. However, the robotic guards, noticing the motionless soldiers, went on high alert. Red lights flashed and alarms blared. Merrick quickly connected to the terminal, trying to override the robotic guards' command systems. "Give me some time," he shouted. Ryker and Zeke found themselves in a confrontation with the robots. Pressed against the walls, the two fired their weapons, the laser shot striking the robots' metallic bodies, causing sparks to fly. But the robots didn't stop. Their thick armor was impenetrable to normal rounds. "This isn't working," Ryker said, continuing to fire. "We need more firepower." Just then, Merrick, still plugged into the terminal, managed to take control of the robot systems. "I'm disabling them," he said, and the robots suddenly stopped, their red alarm lights flickering out. The corridor fell into a deadly silence. Ryker wiped the sweat from his brow and took a deep breath. "Good work, Merrick," he said, turning to the team. "Now, let's move on to the main communication center." Their next objective was to sow the seeds of chaos within the base. As they entered the main communication center, they were faced with a control console that sent orders to the entire Zartar military. Merrick quickly connected to the console, and the screens filled with orders being sent across the galaxy. "Once we take this place, the entire galaxy will be plunged into chaos," Merrick said excitedly. A faint smile appeared on Ryker's calm face. "Let's get it done," he said. "It's time to finish this." Merrick swiftly began to manipulate the orders. He sent false attack orders to the Zartar forces, scrambled their communications, and inputted incorrect coordinates, causing massive warships to head toward each other. On the screens, images of Zartar ships colliding with each other and bases mistaking each other for enemies appeared, creating a chaotic scene across the galaxy. "We did it," Merrick said. "Now we can sit back and watch the destruction unfold." Just then, Ryker glanced at the screen. One of the Zartar commanders was trying to break through the communication network. "They've realized we've infiltrated," he said in a dark tone. "We're running out of time. We need to get out of here." The team quickly began making their way out of the communication center, but they were met with massive, heavily armored guards blocking their path. Ryker and his team, laser pistols drawn, engaged in a deadly firefight. The sound of laser fire echoed through the corridor, as the Zartar guards' armor deflected the blasts, sending sparks flying. Ryker crouched behind a wall, taking strategic shots. Zeke, as the sharpshooter, targeted the weak points in the guards' armor, while Merrick continuously hacked into the systems, disabling traps and defense mechanisms. A momentary lapse in attention allowed one of the Zartar soldiers to hit Ryker with a laser blast to his shoulder, sending him crashing to the ground. Despite the sharp pain, Ryker suppressed the agony, quickly rising and continuing to fire with a cool demeanor. The sharp blasts of laser weapons echoed through the corridor, bouncing off metal walls, adding to the rising tension in the atmosphere. The Zartar guards, with their heavy armor and massive size, were a deadly threat. Ryker's team was outnumbered, but their speed and strategic minds gave them an advantage. Ilian, while trying to bandage Ryker's injured arm, continued firing her laser pistol. "If we get cornered here, we're dead," she said in panic. Ryker gritted his teeth, pushing the pain aside. He lifted his chin, scanning the area. "We can turn this to our advantage. We can trap them in a narrow spot and neutralize them." Zeke aimed his laser rifle at the guards. "If we can survive long enough to reach the end of the tunnel," he said, firing laser beams into the gaps in the guards' armor, taking down a few of them. But for every guard they killed, another took their place. Merrick ran towards a terminal at the end of the corridor, trying to access the defense systems. As his mind focused on cracking the system, beads of sweat dripped down his forehead. "Buy me more time," he shouted. As he continued scanning the area, a light finally appeared in his eyes. "Found it," he cried. "I can close the doors at the end of this corridor and trap them here." "Do it," Ryker ordered as he saw more guards approaching their narrow corridor. Zeke and Ilian kept up the strategic fire, pushing the enemies back for a moment. Ryker reloaded his laser pistol in his right hand and carefully spotted a command officer maneuvering among the armored guards. The officer's insignia on his helmet marked him as different from the others. "I see the commander," Ryker said, locking onto the target. "Once we take him down, the remaining guards will scatter." The commander's body was larger and covered in thicker armor than the others. With a massive laser weapon in hand, he moved like a tank, not a soldier. Ryker aimed and started firing carefully, but the laser beams bounced off his armor. "Too thick of armor," Zeke shouted, still firing. "We can't penetrate it." Ryker moved closer, searching for weak points in the commander's armor. Finally, he noticed a small gap just below the commander's helmet. He needed a precise shot to hit that weak spot. The commander aimed his laser pistol at Ryker, and a powerful blast lit up the corridor. Ryker barely dodged, narrowly escaping the shot, though his movements were slowing due to his bleeding shoulder. Meanwhile, Merrick yelled from the terminal, "I'm closing the doors. Hurry!" The commander took heavy steps toward Ryker. The metallic clanking of his armor echoed through the corridor. Ryker, summoning the last of his courage, lunged forward, sliding beneath the commander and aiming his laser pistol at the small gap. He fired. The laser beam hit the commander's neck, and his massive body collapsed to the ground like a pile of metal. The remaining guards momentarily froze in shock. This was Ryker's team's chance to escape. Merrick quickly typed in the last commands on the terminal, causing the heavy metal doors at the end of the corridor to slam shut, trapping the guards outside. With the escape route clear, Ryker jumped over the commander's massive body and joined his team. "We're leaving," he said firmly, still determined despite his injury. Zeke, Ilian, and Merrick ran after him, heading towards the next tunnel that would take them back to the landing zone before entering the base. However, the base outside had already started sounding the alarm, and guards were converging on them from all directions. By the time they reached the landing zone, enemy ships had already locked onto them with radar. "Time's running out," Zeke said, rushing toward their ship. "We need to get out of here, or we'll be buried." Ilian performed a final check before boarding the ship and immediately powered it up. The ship's engines roared to life, while Merrick activated the defense systems and Zeke prepared the weapon systems. As the enemy ships pursued them, Ryker and his team launched into space, dodging laser blasts hitting their ship's outer hull. Zeke turned around and began firing back. The ship weaved through the darkness of space, narrowly escaping destruction. Ryker sat in the control seat of the ship. Despite the pain in his wounded shoulder, he focused. "We need to take out those ships," he said, maneuvering the ship while trying to evade the enemy radar. Zeke boosted the ship's defense and attack systems to their maximum capacity. "We need to shake them off before they activate their hyperdrive. Otherwise, they'll chase us forever." The two of them fired repeatedly at the enemy ships, gliding through the dark void of space. Amid the laser explosions, they managed to hit one of the enemy ships, which burst into flames before collapsing. But the other ships kept coming. Merrick, making final adjustments, shouted, "Almost ready." Just as an enemy ship neared them and started firing, the ship shook from the impact. The systems briefly malfunctioned, but Ryker managed to dodge another shot with a swift maneuver. Merrick called out now. Ryker engaged the hyperdrive, and in an instant, the ship shot forward, moving at light speed, leaving the enemy ships far behind. In the endless dark of space, they had gained a step ahead of the Zartar Empire's fleet. After some time, the ship finally settled. Ryker leaned back in his seat, taking a deep breath. "We did it," he said, looking at his team. Ilian carefully checked his wounded shoulder. "But we paid a heavy price. Your injury, the time we lost. There's no winner in this war." Zeke, looking at the data flow on the terminal, said with a determined voice, "But we've opened a massive hole in the heart of the Zartar Empire. They'll pull back now. And we'll finish this. I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye, see you in the next story."